Hey guys, welcome to another video. Thank you for joining. Today I want to tell the story of my first 50-mile race. I ran it in February 2013. At that point I had run several marathons. I had run a few 50Ks, probably 4 or 5 50Ks before I ran my first 50-miler, and decided it was time to step up in distance and give it a try. I really wasn't sure how to train for it. I did do some looking up and reading with tips. Most of the tips that I found just had you running, some had back-to-back long runs and things like that, but a lot of them were just that you can run, basically train like a marathon, and it'll work out. But what I did is I pretty much trained for a marathon sort of thing, but as I started doing 18 and 20, 22-mile runs, I would tack on walking to the end of it. So I might run 18 and walk 6, so it'd end up 24, right? When I got to 22, I was probably running 22 and then walking 8. So I think the longest run I did going into it was probably a 30-mile combined run and walk, but it was a normal like marathon run and then a walk added on to the end. So my first one was at Raccoon, the 50-miler. Rocky Raccoon is well known for having a big 100-mile race down there. It's in Huntsville State Park. I had done races in Huntsville State Park previously. I did the Sunmark Texas Trails 50Ks a few times, so I felt comfortable with the park. It is known as a fairly fast course, but it's got rolling hills. The only technical bits are there are some areas with some roots that you have to watch out for, but it's pretty much runnable. I mean, as you get real tired late in the race, you might have to walk some of the hills, but otherwise it's a pretty runnable course. And I thought it would be a good one to do my first attempt at. That, and I was going to know some people down there, which was a big plus as well. Went down with my wife and my daughter and son the day before. We spent a night in a hotel. Got up that morning, went to the race site, took off, and it was a nice, cool morning. My memory of it is not real great in a lot of respects, but I do remember it was the 100-milers were doing, I think back in those days they were doing 20-mile loops, so we were doing a modified loop that was like 16 2/3 miles, so we did it twice. I remember I felt pretty good the first loop, got in pretty good time. The second loop felt pretty good, but right toward the end of it I really kind of hit the wall. So around mile 30 I started really feeling bad, and I started thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm going to get through this or not. But I ate some, drank some, and took off. I think I walked a bit and took off again. And within a few miles, I started feeling pretty good again. Felt pretty good until the early 40s. I got a little over 40 miles, and then I hit a rough patch and did not feel real good, probably from mile 40 to 45. And I remember calling my wife and talking to her about when I was most likely going to finish, and having that discussion. I get to about mile 45 and I started feeling great. And I really ran in hard the rest of the way. In fact, I ended up getting there before when I told my wife I would get there. So I finished and my family was not at the finish. I was very happy with my time. I did 10 hours and 41 minutes, which I thought was a very good time for me. I finished and my friend Melissa was there supporting my friend Greg. And Melissa was able to, my phone had died. She was able to loan me her cell phone, so I was able to call my wife. Well, they had entered back in the park and were about to get back to me anyway. But so it was very, very nice. We went back and from what I remember, we spent the night in the hotel that night. The following morning we drove home. But it was a very good experience. I really enjoyed it, and I love running. It was a race put on by Tejas Trails, who still puts on lots of great trail races down in mostly central Texas. They do an awesome job, and the Rocky Raccoon is a great race. They've now split it. Back in those days, the 50 miler and the 100 miler was on the same weekend. Now they do a 50 miler on one weekend and a 100 miler on the next weekend. So they split it up, or it might be the 100 miler and then the 50 miler. I think that's what it is. But the race just got so large that they couldn't accommodate everyone on the same weekend. So they've split it into 2 weekends in February. Anyway, this is the shirt I received. So this was my finisher's medal for finishing. And we had some photos from after the race, and we got a deal on blowing one up. So this is the only one I've done this with, but I've got this big blown up thing from finishing my 50 miler that says Rocky Raccoon 50 miles, Huntsville State Park, and the date. And it shows my race number and what I was wearing. So this is the only one big photo that I've ever done from one of my races. But anyway, it was a good time. It was a good introduction to running longer distances. Really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I can't recommend that race enough. Other than that, I hope you're having a great week and keep moving.